some South African expatriates living in these so-called perfect countries are choosing to return home.
Many South Africans in Britain work as teachers, nurses, computer technicians and in other professions to persuade their countrymen and women to return home.
You know what's funny? For decades, the story was simple. South Africans leave, they wave goodbye at OR Tambo, and everyone at home says, well, there goes another brain heading to London. Fast forward a few years, and suddenly, plot twist, people are coming back. Yep, after all that hype about greener pastures abroad, thousands are ditching the icy commutes, the overpriced groceries, and the sorry, where are you really from? Questions, and heading straight back to Cape Town, Durban, Joburg. Why? Well, let's just say the overseas dream sometimes feels more like an overpriced Airbnb, tiny, cold, and not worth the rent. Sure, your paycheck might be in pounds or dollars, but so is your rent, your groceries, your train fare, and let's not forget, your sanity. At some point, you start asking, is this better, or am I just paying premium prices for the privilege of being homesick? Here's where it gets juicy. That same paycheck back home is basically a lifestyle cheat code. Pounds stretch like elastic bands when you're spending in rands. What buys you a shoebox in London suddenly buys you a house with a garden in Stellenbosch. And if you're one of the lucky ones working remotely, congrats, you've just unlocked Earn Like a Londoner, Live Like a Local. Translation: more braais, less budgeting. But let's be honest, money isn't the whole story. Because once the numbers check out, what really pulls at people is family. Grandparents want to see grandkids grow up in real life, not pixelated on FaceTime. Parents want cousins playing together, not lonely kids in nuclear isolation. And no matter how nice Sydney beaches are, they'll never replace the smell of a Sunday braai, the jokes that don't need subtitles, or being hugged in your own mother tongue. And just when you think this is all about warm fuzzies, there's another layer: opportunity. Because while many left chasing better jobs, they're finding that with international experience under their belt, they're more valuable back home than ever. Suddenly, returnees aren't just employees. They're entrepreneurs, innovators, and problem solvers with global perspective. Now let's talk about something nobody puts on their Instagram highlight reels: loneliness. Because sure, expat life looks glamorous when you're posting selfies under the Eiffel Tower or sipping overpriced flat whites in Melbourne. But off camera, it's a lot of eating dinner alone, awkwardly Skyping into weddings at 3 a.m., and nodding politely while your colleagues debate cricket rules you've never even heard of. At some point, the novelty wears off, and you start missing the stuff you can't buy with foreign currency, like laughing with people who get your slang without needing subtitles. And speaking of subtitles, let's not forget culture. Abroad, you're the South African. At home, you're just you. The jokes land, the food tastes right, and you don't have to explain what biltong is for the 100th time to someone who thinks it's just jerky. Spoiler, it's not. But let's not romanticize this as just nostalgia. There's also a sharp financial twist. Remember when moving abroad meant stability, safety, and better jobs? Well, global inflation showed up and said, plot twist, rent in London, astronomical, groceries in Sydney, basically haute couture prices for milk and bread. Even Canada, land of maple syrup and politeness, isn't immune. That sense of I've made it quickly turns into I'm running on a treadmill that never slows down. Meanwhile, back home, the same money suddenly has superpowers. Even middle-class expats discover that their foreign savings go a lot further in South Africa than they ever could abroad. And for the savvy ones, remote work is the jackpot. They're sipping rooibos on their porch in Pretoria while getting paid in euros. Honestly, that's not just a flex, it's a full-on cheat code. But here's the kicker. It's not only about making life cheaper. For many, it's about making life richer. Richer in time with family, richer in culture, richer in identity. Because let's face it, No amount of overseas paychecks can buy you the feeling of being home for Christmas, being at a cousin's wedding, or hearing your mother tongue in the taxi rank. And just when you think this return wave is about comfort, surprise, it's also about purpose. Thousands of returnees aren't coming back to just live in South Africa. They're coming back to build South Africa. Doctors setting up rural clinics, entrepreneurs turning load shedding into business opportunities with solar startups, teachers bringing back new methods from overseas schools. It's less about escaping abroad now and more about investing back home. Here's the part where things get interesting. Because while South Africa's headlines love to scream power cuts, corruption, crime, the reality on the ground is way more nuanced. For every load-shedding schedule, there's a sunrise over Table Mountain. For every frustrating government queue, there's a Saturday braai with friends that feels like therapy. And for every pothole, okay, well, there's still a pothole. But hey, you'll be laughing about it with people who get the joke. The quality of life trade-off is real. Abroad, you get efficiency, trains that actually arrive on time, clean sidewalks, and yes, maybe fewer daily frustrations. But efficiency comes at a cost. You're trading space, sunshine, and social fabric for endless commutes, tiny apartments, and 6 months of grey skies. Back home, you've got beaches where you can actually find parking, mountains begging for hikes, and a social culture that thrives on connection. You don't just grab coffee, you sit, you talk, you live. And here's where the returnees are laughing. Many of them spent years overseas collecting skills, contacts, and credibility, only to realize they're 10 times more valuable in South Africa. In London, you're one of a million qualified accountants. In Cape Town, you're a highly sought-after professional with international experience. Suddenly, your CV has sparkle. Employers take notice, or better yet, you skip the employer altogether and launch your own venture. Now let's zoom out. Because this isn't just about individuals having better weekends. Every person coming back is bringing more than just their suitcase. They're carrying networks, skills, ideas. Economists call it reverse brain drain. Sounds like a medical procedure, but really, it's one of the most powerful shifts happening right now. Imagine all those engineers, doctors, teachers, designers who left in the 90s and 2000s suddenly plugging their experience back into the system. That's not nostalgia, that's fuel for national renewal. And here's a spicy angle nobody talks about: symbolism. For decades, the dominant story was everyone's leaving. Now you've got thousands actively choosing to return. That's not just logistics, that's psychology. When people stop seeing South Africa as a place to escape from and start seeing it as a place to build in, that shifts confidence. And confidence in a country's future is priceless. Of course, let's keep it real. South Africa isn't a utopia. Crime, unemployment, and power shortages are not fairy tales, they're real. But here's the kicker. Returnees aren't naive. They know the challenges. The difference is, instead of sitting in Toronto complaining about corruption on Facebook, they're back home doing something about it. Meet Thabo, software engineer, spent 8 years in Germany. The pay? Fantastic. The efficiency? German-level precise. You could set your watch by the trains. But here's the problem. All the efficiency in the world couldn't replace the warmth of home. In Berlin, he was just another foreigner. Back in Soweto, he's a son, a brother, part of a community that knows his jokes before he even finishes them. And guess what? He didn't downgrade. He still works remotely for a European company, earning euros while living where his heart actually beats. That's not a sacrifice. That's a win-win. Then there's Sarah, nurse, 10 years in the UK, spent Christmases alone, dialed into family funerals, over grainy video calls, sent money home like clockwork. But when her father fell ill, she came back. And instead of regret, she found renewal. South Africa desperately needed her skills, Her kids suddenly had cousins to grow up with, and she rediscovered what life looks like when it's lived together instead of apart. And Saifo, he did the unthinkable, left Canada, land of poutine and polite drivers, to come back and start a solar energy company. Yep, right in the land of load shedding. Some people saw crisis, he saw opportunity. Now, his startup employs 25 people and is expanding across provinces. He's not just back home, he's building home. These stories aren't isolated anecdotes, they're a pattern. Returnees often go through the same emotional roller coaster. Initial shock, because let's be honest, no one misses home affairs, followed by a rediscovery of deep belonging, and finally the realization that they're not just surviving, they're thriving. And here's the plot twist. Many returnees become bridges. They bring back skills, ideas, and networks. They introduce new ways of working, fresh teaching methods, global tech innovations, even culinary twists. It's like South Africa gets all the experience they harvested abroad, without the brain drain tax. That's powerful. Of course, it's not always smooth sailing. Some people feel foreign at home at first. They need to relearn slang, reconnect socially, even navigate political realities that look different after years away. But overwhelmingly, the benefits outweigh the speed bumps. The trade is worth it. And when you zoom out, you realize this isn't just about one family's Sunday braai or one entrepreneur's solar panels. It's about a nation slowly reversing decades of loss. Every returning doctor, engineer, teacher, or creative is like a drop of rain on dry soil. Multiply that by thousands, and suddenly the ground starts to shift. Here's the thing. When South Africans started leaving decades ago, it was with heavy hearts and big dreams. People wanted safety, stability, and a shot at success in places that looked shinier on postcards. And honestly, no judgment. Who wouldn't chase a bigger paycheck or a safer commute if the opportunity's there? But the script has flipped. The kids of those who left are now finding that the very opportunities their parents chased abroad are popping up back in South Africa. That's not migration, it's redemption. And the impact goes way beyond one family or one household. Every returnee is more than just a plane ticket scanned at OR Tambo. It's expertise reinvested, it's capital flowing back, it's children being raised in cultures that actually understand them. It's entrepreneurs building companies, teachers reshaping schools, creatives fueling new industries. It's a quiet revolution, one that doesn't need headlines to matter. Economists see it as talent replenishment. Communities see it as reconnection. Politicians see it as symbolism. And you might see it as a choice you didn't realize you had. Because the truth is, moving back home doesn't mean settling. It can mean leveling up. Personally, professionally, emotionally. Of course, let's keep it grounded. South Africa's challenges don't vanish just because people are returning. Load shedding isn't going to politely excuse itself. Crime stats won't magically disappear. Bureaucracy is still bureaucracy. But here's the key. The people coming back know all this. They're not wearing rose-colored glasses. They're wearing work gloves. They see challenges not as dead ends, but as areas where they can contribute, innovate, and rebuild. That's why this return wave is so powerful. It's not nostalgia dragging people back. It's vision pulling them forward. A vision where home isn't just a place you left, but a place you actively shape. And that's the story thousands of South Africans are writing right now. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If you're abroad, maybe scrolling this on your phone while waiting for a train in the rain, ask yourself, not why go back, but why not? Why not trade grey skies for braai smoke, isolation for belonging, and treadmill living for purpose-driven building? Because for thousands already on the move, coming home isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a brand new chapter. And if you've stuck with me this far, you already know what to do. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments, if you could pack your bags tomorrow, would you head back to South Africa? Or is your overseas adventure still worth the price tag? Either way, let's talk about it, because this conversation is just getting started.